Welcome in to the Talking Ball College Basketball Show. We're going to be reacting to week two's AP poll. We've got some movers and shakers going on there. But before we get to that, got to recap the big games we highlighted last week. So it's been a week now, but Arizona beat Florida, the reigning national champs, lost their first game of the season to Arizona in what was a phenomenal freshman debut for Koa Pete with 30 points. Thomas Ha, no slouch of his own right. He had 27 points. That just wasn't enough for Florida, who at the end of the game looked like they missed Walter Clayton. BYU it was a little bit dicey. They beat Villanova, got close late, but DeBonsa had some key buckets. Duke beat Texas in a game in which Cameron Boozer had 0 points at the half, but finished with a double-double. Kansas played at North Carolina and was up 8 at the half before North Carolina went absolutely ballistic and scored 58 points in the second half, led by Caleb Wilson and company, and they won that game. The one thing I got right, Alabama beat St. John's 102-96 in a game I said would be played in the 100s. Tremendous guard play from Alabama's trio of LeBaron Philon, Aiden Holloway, Latrell Wrightsell. Arkansas lost at Michigan State in a very close game, a very well-coached game by Tom Izzo. And Gonzaga beat Oklahoma. So a lot of big games last week, a lot of big games next week we'll get to in just a few minutes. Anything that caught your eye from this past week, JD?
In terms of the rankings itself, not especially. It's so early, a touch here, touch there. So, other actually, there was the idea that we have such good matchups early on in the season and brings us back to, the opening day of the season. Should the Champions Classic be played that day? But shortly thereafter, by the weekend, there were great matchups. And so as a hoops fan, it was a good start to college basketball.
And I don't know what they're called, but the games in Las Vegas were basically a Champions Classic. 3 of the 4 teams were ranked. That's kind of what it's been in Champions Classic of late. And those three teams that were ranked were in the top 12 or 13 at the time of those games. So that was basically a Champions Classic. It was basically it.
They should force the Final Four to have to play each other.
I mean, it's not a bad idea in theory. I think the issue is that most of the schedules are made like before the Final Four is done. I don't think they're completely finalized, so I think there's a way you could squeak in.
You could squeak it in if you really wanted to give the fans a lot of fun and say, come on, not only as a fan, but as someone who just participates in pools in March Madness. And so their recognition of the Final Four is really high. And so you give them the Final Four again, despite the fact that they've lost this guy, that guy, this. I get it, but it would be fun. That's all.
How would you feel if you had the games from the Final Four last year, or the teams, I should say, but they were playing the opposite counterparts? How'd you feel about that?
Oh, you mean instead of the semis matched up this way, they're matched up this way?
Yeah.
That any combination would be fun.
All right. Well, I think you're gonna be in for a treat then, because we have that. We have that in the next couple of weeks, and we're gonna get to the games. And well, I'll just key in. So one of the big games for this week is Houston taking on Auburn.
Whoa, there we go.
And that will be this will be the one game I'll jump ahead to for this upcoming week before we go to the poll. That'll be Sunday at 3 o'clock. Now, I do have a couple of themes from the week, and one of them is that game, among many of the other big games, are games that we won't be able to watch because they are on ESPN. And as long as ESPN and YouTube TV are not in agreement, those games, unfortunately for us YouTube TV subscribers, are not watchable.
That is regrettably true, though I was in Boston enjoying ESPN.
True. And the other thing I wanted to point out is that in a few weeks, Duke does play Florida. So you do get your Final Four wish. You just had to mix up the matchups there. But they don't play, the teams they played last year, although Florida and Auburn will play in the SEC.
Well, and I know we're jumping ahead here. So the fact that Houston, who is so highly ranked, that is not the case with Auburn.
No, and we'll get to that in just a moment. Right. One more point I want to make before we jump into the AP poll and our reaction to it is I'm not roping in anybody else. I overrated 3-point shooting is my analysis from week 1. And the reason I say that, I was worried about Arizona's 3-point shooting. What do? They come out, they beat the defending national champions, and in the totality of the game, they made 2 threes. They only shot 5. Michigan State, if you thought I was worried about Arizona's 3-point shooting, I was way more worried about Michigan State's 3-point shooting. They beat what I thought was a good Arkansas team. Granted, they were at home. They made 1 3-pointer in the game. 1. So I overrated 3-point shooting in college basketball, and I'm curious if that theme
is a trend. Is it a trend? Because college basketball will follow the NBA, and that is not the trend in the NBA. They are still shooting tons of 3-pointers. The only thing we've seen is the effort to copy last year's finalists. So we had Indiana and OKC with a very long team. They could
Deep
play
bench.
10, 11 players, and a lot of teams have tried to figure out how to have a deeper bench. So, but no shortage of 3-pointers. If anything, our New York Knicks have been told to shoot more 3-pointers.
That's right. And look, in college you can get away with more scoring inside than the NBA, but man, 2 and 1 3-pointers in big wins this week was a big surprise to me. I figured if those teams were to win those games, they would have had to shoot better than what I thought, and they shot the way I thought they would and still won the games. So hat tip to them.
That's a great stat. Great stat.
All right, let's jump to the AP poll. So, hold on, I had an ad pop up here. I got the poll pulled up for all of our watchers. For those of you who are listening, we will read off the poll. So, the first 7 teams, because it's broken up by an advertisement here, are Houston, who jumped Purdue. They've moved up to number 1. Purdue's number 2. UConn at number 3. Duke at 4. Arizona at 5. Michigan at 6. And BYU at 7. So I'll stop there. Anything you want to say from that first 7?
What I'm going to be doing, Jack, is I'm going to just look at trends from the New York Times poll, the CBS poll, and the coaches poll. And so among the top 7, the most consistent was Houston across the polls. Only the New York Times, and they are the outlier. but fun to look at. They had him at 4. CBS and the coaches poll had Houston at 2, with Purdue at 1. You know, that's who you're going to rank 1 or 2. And the other team that is pretty consistently up there is UConn. UConn was 3, New York Times 5, CBS 3, and coaches 3. So
I thought it's interesting. Like Purdue got more first place votes than Houston, and the points are only off by 3, so it's very close. But the way Purdue's looked has definitely been a bit shaky. Houston, I think, has looked stronger. I really like their freshman big Chris Sinak, and then the guys they brought back from last year. They are really good. UConn at 3, they were up 37-2. I forgot who they were playing. It was like 37 to, maybe it was 37-3. It was, I couldn't believe the score I was looking at the other night. And they don't have their star freshman, who it's kind of become a little bit of a trend with UConn, that their star freshman guard misses a couple of months early in the season, Braylon Mullins. And then Arizona, they moved up 8 spots. They beat Florida. I think it makes sense. Well, they've got a big game coming up this week. If they win that, I expect them maybe even to move up a spot or 2. It's hard to move up much more once you're in the top 5, but boy, do they looked really good, better than what I thought in the preseason.
I did leave one observation out comparing it to the other polls, and that is, as you know, we're Duke junkies, but we're trying to be as fair as we can across the top 25. So the AP had Duke at 4, CBS had Duke at 4, coaches had Duke at 4, and I don't know what it is with the New York Times, but they dropped them from 9 to 15.
Wow.
Now, I don't know that Duke is the 4th best team in the country, but for now, I'd put them in the top 10.
That's wild.
We're gonna they're our outlier. We're gonna have some fun keeping an eye on what they do. Go ahead, Jack.
That was like last week. They didn't have Braden Smith or Cameron Boozer in their top 7 players,
Right.
Now, I will say, last time I checked, AJ Storr had got off to a good start to the season. He is averaging 18.5 points, 4.5 rebounds, 3 assists. So really good start for Storr. He's shooting 73% from 3. That's going to cool off. But that was the guy who, I had contention with in your top 7 players. Nothing against Storr, just I didn't think he was top 7. All right. Next group, we've got number 8, Alabama, number 9, Kentucky, number 10, Florida, number 11, Texas Tech, number 12, Louisville, number 13, St. John's, and number 14, Illinois. Anything here?
Well, coming from Queens, St. John's lost, so rightfully so, they were dropped to 13. Not that there's a New York bias in the New York Times poll, but they were dropped to 10. In the CBS poll, they were 14, and in the coaches poll, they were 13. So just Queens, St. John's bias, want to track them. They had to be dropped substantially because it was the early part of the season, so they lost.
Yeah, and I'll take the opposite end of that game, which was Alabama. Boy, I mean they've always been fast. They're even faster, and that trio of guards is they are really good. I am curious what's going to happen when they go up against guards, which isn't going to be often, in fairness, that can match up their play. I didn't think the St. John's, it was one of my big questions with St. John's. Could their guards produce well enough? And they did not. But to me, with Alabama, the guys who really give me a lot of hope for this team to be a Final Four team again is their forwards. Taylor Bowen, I thought, had a really good performance. Amari Allen is just incredibly active player. I really like his game. Can they get enough? They're mixing and matching at the center position between Sherrill, um, Noah Williamson, and Collins. I forget how you pronounce his last name, but they're kind of mixing and matching at the center spot. So I'm curious what they're going to do there. And then lastly, in this grouping, Illinois, I think is very interesting. They've got the All Baltic team, and they started off. They're averaging. They haven't played anybody really yet, but they're averaging 113 points a game, which is, regardless, pretty insane. And they're doing it without their point guard, Mihailo Petrovic. They've had Keaton Wagler, who is outside the top 100 freshman, 6'5", 6'6" guard. He's had a really impressive start, averaging around 20 points a game in those two games. So we're going to get to them in just a little bit, but I think they're a team worth keeping an eye on here. And now we've got 15 through 21.
Wait. Alabama, I was going to try to squeeze this in. They had jumped 7 spots to get to number 8 in the AP poll. And this is where the New York Times also, they were number 18 in the New York Times poll, and they brought them to number 6. So pretty close. And then in CBS, Alabama only rose to number 12, and in the coaches poll, number 9. Just keeping an eye out on all the polls. It's pretty early in the season. You don't really know where everyone is. So it's kind of interesting to see where 4 different polls happen. All right, Jack, let's go to the next group.
Next group. So 15, UCLA. 16, Iowa State. 17, Michigan State. 18, North Carolina. 19, Gonzaga. 20, Tennessee, and 21, Arkansas. Anything here?
Well, first of all, happy to see Michigan State take a nice big jump early on. We know, sound technicians, we know what's going to happen is that they're going to come up, then they're going to drop, and then at the end of the season, he's going to take him in a roll. So everyone should know that about Michigan State. So if Michigan State is 16, they climb 5 spots in the coaches poll. Now, Michigan State in the New York Times poll is 24. They are 15, so pretty close in the CBS poll, and then 17 in the coaches poll. So pretty close all around. UNC jumped 7 spots to be number 18. And the New York Times, just double checking this, unranked.
Yeah.
CBS has them at 18 and coaches poll has them at 20. And I think we were talking about for the ACC, it's nice to have Duke, Louisville, UNC, and I'll say that this is strange. The AP poll, the 26th team was NC State. So a fourth ACC team. And out of some bizarre agreement, the New York Times also said NC State is the 2016.
Yeah, we'll get to the bottom part in just a moment on Michigan State, North Carolina. I thought Michigan State would, as you said, go on their typical path. This was a nice early win for them. We have a clear identity around defense, scoring inside. They have their point guard with Jeremy Fears. Hold on, pause here. Quick pause. We'll let the dogs out.
Top 25 is always been fun to watch over the course of the season. The conversion from the top 25 to March Madness, the field of 64 or the field of 68, is always interesting. And that's why it's kind of fun to see who gets votes after the top 25. All right, Jack, we back?
We're back. We're back. So, Michigan State, I was saying, big early season win for them. North Carolina, just as big early season win for them, for Coach Hubert Davis. A little bit bittersweet right now because they get their big win. I'm really high on them. I like their big guys. I think Caleb Wilson. I made a video. I said from now on, I'm not referring as to the big three freshmen. It's the big four. He's number 4. I've been really impressed with Caleb Wilson from high school, and even more impressed now. And then Seth Trimble fractures his arm, and it's going to be out around 2 months. So they've got some tough games coming up. They play Michigan State. They have, who are their other? Let me look this up really quickly. They had a couple other tough ones coming up in the next few weeks, but then they get a little bit of a break. They've got Kentucky. They've got Georgetown. So to be honest, it's not the worst time for this to happen. If he's going to be out 2 months, that would mean he'd be back the start of January. So just really in time for conference play. So if they can win one of those 3 games, they'll be just fine. If they can win 2 of them, they'll be in great shape for when Seth Trimble comes back. And it's a big opportunity for some of their other guys to develop over this time. Derek Dixon, Akayan Evans, Powell. Some of these other guys are going to get extended run. And we'll see Bogovats, I think, will get more run. So we'll see how they do. Wrapping up with the remainder of the AP poll, we've got number 22, Auburn, number 23, Creighton, number 24, Wisconsin, and number 25, Kansas. As you said before, NC State would be 26, San Diego State 27, Indiana 28, Oregon 29, and for a nice even round number, Vanderbilt would be 30. And okay, I'll say Auburn. I'll say Auburn and Kansas. Number 1, Auburn almost went down to Bethune-Cookman. They had to go to overtime. And I was like, man, Bethune-Cookman could be really good. And then they played Miami a couple days later and lost by 30. So I'm a little bit worried about this Auburn team. As we talked about before, they've got a big game coming up against Houston. Last year, they won that game. That was one of the games with Todd Pettiford, and I was like, whoa, this team's going to be really good. I'm not sure that's going to happen this year. And Kansas, it's Darren Peterson, and who else? Who else can give them something? Bryson Tiller hit some nice shots. That was fun. He also fouled out. They're going to need more to help Peterson, and we'll see if some of these other guys can improve as the year goes on for the Jayhawks.
So let's talk about Kansas for a second, since as a Duke fanatic, next week we play them in the Champions Classic. So already AP has them as 25. So, I was hoping this would be a big test. Um, the New York Times has Kansas right behind Duke. So Duke is 15, Kansas 16.
Who is writing for them?
It's it's just as I said, there are outlier. CBS has dropped Kansas to 24, as has the coaches poll, has them at 24. So we're going to have to look a little further into who is writing, and I will try to add as the weeks go on the reasons. They do offer the reasons why they're ranking them where they are, so then you can have fun with them.
We sure will. We sure will. Now, this week we've got some big matchups. You thought last week we had big matchups. We've got huge matchups this week, and it starts off with the biggest matchup of the week, and a game we won't be able to watch for a multitude of reasons. Tomorrow night, Tuesday, 8 o'clock, number 9, Kentucky goes on the road to play number 12, Louisville. The biggest game of the week. But listen, there's another game which technically has higher or lower seeded, I don't know which the way to say this correctly, teams, but we know the history of this rivalry. These two teams do not like each other. The coaches, they had a recruiting battle earlier, which they both lost a few months ago to Kansas. I think this is going to be a really fascinating game. Now, before the season started, I picked Louisville to win this game. Then Kentucky went and beat Purdue, and I was thinking about, and Louisville lost to Kansas, and I was really thinking about flip-flopping my pick here, but I don't think I can. I got to stick with Louisville to get this one done against Kentucky, but I think it's going to be a really good game.
We've been there. We've actually seen the game in Louisville.
Yep, that's where it will be.
At the Yum Arena, I think it was. And it was just, the atmosphere is great. It's an in-state rivalry. And this is a family show, so I can't say what I think about the dispute between ESPN and Disney. It's just like you're killing me, Smalls.
ESPN and YouTube TV, because
yeah, but they're owned by Disney, so I still don't know who. I don't know who the fight's between at this point. I get that it's not YouTube. I don't know what it's all. Lots of theories about it, but you're killing me, Smalls. Would you the U.S. government, as difficult as it is for them to agree on anything, actually has a pathway to ending the lockdown before Thanksgiving.
Shutdown.
Well, that's how long I'm giving ESPN, YouTube TV, Disney to work this all out. You guys better have this done before Thanksgiving.
The amount of games we're missing on a weekly basis is we should be getting a check. That's what we should be getting. A little reimbursement. All right. Next big game. Also Tuesday night. Most people aren't going to watch this one, but I think it's my fourth biggest matchup of the week. It's sleeper. Texas Tech, Illinois. You've got Christian Anderson and JT Toppin. You could make the argument it's the best point guard, forward duo in all of college basketball against the all-Baltic team and Keaton Wagler of Illinois, who've just been putting up crazy amounts of points. I'm really excited to watch this game probably Wednesday, realistically, on replay. But it's going to be a fun one to watch.
So we get to not watch it on YouTube, but we can watch it on YouTube TV the next day?
No. I'm just I don't want to give away all my secrets, I don't want people to
stop.
No, the only thing I'm going to say is this game is actually watchable. We just will be at the Duke Army games. We won't be able to watch it, but it's on Fox Sports. So this is
Okay.
one of the few games that is actually watchable this week.
I think that's important to tell our listeners that they
It
can
is.
actually watch it. Fox Sports for this
If
one.
if you don't have YouTube TV. Now, number 23, Creighton takes on Gonzaga at 10 o'clock Tuesday night. That should be a fun one. We also have, and I'm trying to, because you're absolutely right to be able to say whether this game is watchable. And this next one is not, if you're on YouTube TV, again, unfortunately, will be Purdue, number 2, goes to Tuscaloosa to take on Alabama in a rematch that happened last year.
You're
This is
killing me,
my
Smalls.
number 3 game. That's how good of a week this is. Number 3 game of the week. Last year, Purdue won this one.
But we don't get to watch it.
We don't get to watch it. Oh, we should have done this a long time ago. Make sure to subscribe to the channel, like this video, drop your comments below. We really appreciate all the support. Yes, we can't watch this one, which will be
and tell
Thursday.
YouTube TV or ESPN or Disney to get their act together because they're killing us.
They are. They just are. Okay. This next one is available on Peacock, which will be Friday, 10 o'clock. We've got number 5, Arizona, taking on number 15, UCLA, in a Pac-12 throwback matchup. That is going to be a really fun game. You got to battle the point guard spot of 2 of the best in college basketball, Donovan Dent and Jaden Bradley. I think that's going to be a lot of fun. Koa Pete's second big-time game. How does he do? I think that is going to be a really good game. That's Friday, 10 o'clock. These are all Eastern time games. Now, Saturday, in a game that we can watch, this is my second biggest game of the week. Fox, 7 o'clock. Number 3, UConn takes on number 7, BYU in TD Garden in Boston, where DeBonta started his career. What a great matchup early season. The only thing I could ask for more would be if UConn's star freshman Braylon Mullins was healthy, but unfortunately he will miss this matchup.
Should I go back to Boston?
You went the wrong weekend. I don't know what to tell you. Now, lastly, to wrap up this week and to wrap up our program here, 2 more games that we unfortunately cannot watch unless something changes. The aforementioned, we talked about this earlier on the program. Number 1, Houston takes on number 22, Auburn. And then, the nightcap, this is the one game a week. I'll pick an unranked team going up against a ranked one. This is going to be 8:30, Miami. And Jay Lucas in his first big matchup as a head coach against number 10, Florida. That should be a good test for Miami. See where they're at in a game in which I think Miami's strength is their front court. They're going to have a tough time going up against the front court of Florida. At the same time, that's exactly what I thought for Arizona. And Koa Pete said this was too easy for me. So we'll see how the Miami front court does against Florida. But a lot of fun matchups.
Well, that's a fun matchup. Also, in-state rivalry that can be going to say a new rivalry because Jay Lucas is building his program. So, it's not like, in football, Michigan, Ohio State goes back every year. I hate you, you hate me, goes to the faculty and everything. I'm not certain, like in college basketball, where Louisville, Kentucky, there's just no love. Duke, UNC, there is no love. It's hard to say that the Miami-Florida game is at that level, but it could get there.
Could.
But we can't watch it.
No, well, as of right now, maybe, something changes by the time we get to Sunday. I hope so. Crossing my fingers. Until next time, guys, we will be doing our Monday show every week after the AP poll comes out. So be sure to subscribe to the channel. And yeah, anything else you want to say, JD, before we sign off here?
I just want to watch basketball.
That's a great closing point. Until next time, guys. Peace.